On today's episode of Reels Talk with Amanda and Omar, we'll be doing our spoilerific review of Alita Battle Angel, so stay tuned. So, Alita Battle Angel has had a very long road to the big screen.
A very
long road. I think that James Cameron had mentioned back in '95 wanting to do this, but at the time he had to direct Titanic. That took most of his time. And so, of course, then he had Avatar, Terminator.
Back then, we had this thing called magazines. And there was this magazine called An America Magazine. And I remember reading an article with him back in, I want to say 95, 96, that he was interested in bringing the property of Battle Angel Alita, not Alita Battle Angel. That's not even what it's known as in Japan. Japan! And it's known as Gum. But anyway, he wanted to bring it over to the big screen. But he mentioned in the article, he's like, I'm just waiting until the technology gets there to do it. So when the TV show Dark Angel that came out in 2001 and 2002, he was saying that this is kind of his prototype for what Battle Angel Alita was going to be. I was so excited. And keep in mind, this is 1995, 1996. That's over 20 years ago, right? And long story short, it's now 2019 and we have a movie with Robert Rodriguez.
Yep, directing it. Biggest budget for him as well that he's ever directed.
I could tell.
Yeah.
And James Cameron, he got to keep his screenplay.
Yep.
And, well, when we get to the actors, I'll talk about one of his quotes that I read that I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so.
Yes. So,
spoilerific. Does that mean we can talk spoilers?
Yes.
Everyone dies!
Yes, everyone dies. No, this is not Avengers anymore. But we are going to be talking spoilers.
Okay, let's do it.
Now, I count myself as an average moviegoer. I have, even though I've read comics now.
I think you're above average.
Above average, but I say average because I've never actually read these mangas before. I've never seen the animes or anything like that.
You are going into it like a virgin. You are never seen the OAVs and you've never read any of the manga.
Nothing.
And I'm going into it like a full fucking blown nerd that has been ready for this for so many years.
Yes. My first thoughts just going into it, as an average moviegoer, I enjoyed it immensely. It kept me entertained throughout the entire 2 hours and 2 minutes. It's not a very long movie.
No, it's not.
Given how the number of movies that come out that are more than that now. I love the action sequences. I loved majority of the actors in it. And there was something for me, this is really weird, and I don't know how else to talk about it, but going into it, there's a nostalgic factor for me that I did not anticipate. I don't know if it's the way it was filmed, or if it's the way the script, or how the plot, there's something very 90s-esque about it. To me, it had this different feel than your modern action movies have these days. Maybe it's the script, maybe it's the way it was written.
Maybe
but to me,
it was the dialogue.
The dialogue, and I think that's why I really enjoyed it. In addition to, in general, the story itself.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the story first.
Yes.
So the story takes place in the 27th century, where it's the aftermath of a huge war.
300 years after the fall, right?
Yeah, after the fall is what it's called.
Yeah.
And the final city, it's the flying city.
Zalem,
yeah. They dump their trash on the Iron Scrap City, and where all the citizens go in, I guess they're like scrappers, and they build things. And we meet this gentleman named Ito, who is a robot or cyborg repairman. Yeah. So he finds a body of a cyborg girl, takes her back home, rebuilds her with the body that he had planned for his deceased daughter, and names her after his deceased daughter, Alita.
Yes.
And she wakes up with no memories, and that's pretty much it until she meets Hugo, who she falls in love with immensely, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
And that maybe he's the reason why I think it's 90s, because he reminds me of like Heartthrob from the 90s. He really, with the hair and everything.
He reminds me of a young Robert Rodriguez. Like, that's the way I remember looking at you and I'm like, that guy looks like a young Robert Rodriguez. Like with the bandana and his hair. She slowly starts getting her memories back, how she was some kind of warrior. And
now it's all driven by her, like, fighting. So every time she experiences some type of fight or anything, that's when her memories are triggered.
That's right. No, that's right. And she knows this technique called the Panzer Kunst, and they're like, oh, that technique's been around, like, it's been gone for 300 years. Yeah. She must be an old cyborg warrior. So that kind of sets up, like, how much of a badass she is, because we see her fight, and that's what this movie is basically about. It's just a bunch of fun action. Eventually you find out that Hugo, her love interest, was kind of working for the bad guys, but it's all in good fun because he's just trying to make it up to Solemn. Because he wants to live in the high society where all the rich folks live. and he's tired of living in the city. And now she wants to join him, and she's like, well,
She loves him.
I'll become a bounty hunter. And they're called hunter warriors, and these
Yes.
guys go out and hunt people that are evil because they don't have a police force. So she becomes one against Ito's will because he was also a hunter warrior,
Yes.
as she found out. And I love the fact that they kept him looking exactly like he did in the manga and in the anime. And speaking of the anime, I thought it was interesting that they kept the character of Charon from the OAV, because she wasn't in the manga. She was a character made up for a love interest for the OAV, Ito's love interest. So really cool that Cameron both was inspired by the manga and the anime.
And I enjoyed that part too. That's Ito's backstory. And now, again, I don't know his backstory much from the actual manga, but I enjoyed this backstory with him and Charon and his daughter, and the fact that they were at Zalem. That's where they were, but because of his daughter's sickness and illness, where she couldn't walk, they had to leave Zalem because she was less than perfect, right? And so Charon was always, her goal was to get back to Zalem, and, you know, after their daughter's death, they split up, and so it's really interesting backstory there for Ito. I think that made his character more compelling to me.
So Hugo makes a plan with Vector. Vector's this guy that kind of rules over Iron Scrap City. He's kind of high society, but the way he sees himself as the king of hell. He'd rather rule hell than live at the bottom of the barrel up there.
Yeah.
And who's the actor that played?
Mahershala Ali.
Oh, love that
if
guy.
anyone's watching
Killing
True
it in True
Detective right
Detective.
now.
Killing it in True
He's
Detective. So, unfortunately, Hugo gets framed for murder and is wanted by the Hunter Warriors. One in particular played by
Ed Skrein, I think.
Scran, whatever
yeah,
his name.
who was, I just remember
Dario from Game of
Okay,
Thrones, the original
I remember
Dario.
him as Francis from Deadpool.
Or Francis from Deadpool, right. Guy with a good-looking face,
Yes.
but he's all cybernetic in this, and he goes after him and
Yes.
tries to kill him, but in a turn of events, Alita saves him by chopping his head off, knowing that she could keep him alive with her own little heart and putting his head on an android body. However, that doesn't work out because he still tries to climb up to Solemn.
Yes.
And
Because, for any of those who I'm guessing, Nova is also in these manga, right?
yeah, I wanted to talk about that a little bit, like, when we
Yeah.
talk about the plot. But yeah, there's a character of Destiny Nova that's kind of driving everything and everyone down here. Like, he is... You see little flashbacks of him, including one of her flashbacks. So he plays a role in Ito's life, and Sharon's life, and eventually
And
Hugo
Vector's,
and Vector.
yeah.
So he's making promises to these people
And he
that...
speaks through his accomplices,
Yes.
essentially. He never... You
You
don't
never
actually
see him until the very end.
And spoiler, he's played by Ed Norton. I was not expecting Ed Norton to show up in
Interesting
the film.
choice.
Well,
Right.
it was great. I was at first, the way he looked with the glasses on, I thought it was James Cameron. I was like, is he doing a Cameron in the movie?
No, interesting choice with Ed
Yeah.
Norton.
Mhm.
And then the rest of the story revolves about how, like I said, Hugo trying to go up there, and then we have Shireen wanting to go back up there, like you
Yes.
mentioned, but unfortunately she doesn't make it. Vector kind of betrays her, and Vector gets his
kinda
too
makes
because
it.
Alita gives it to him. So I was
Yeah.
happy to see that. Yeah, Hugo ends up dying. She loses Hugo because in the end he just couldn't wait to get up there, and
Yes.
Destiny Nova ended up killing everybody. But let's talk about the cast.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cast. There's a lot of young actors, a lot of new young
Yes,
actors,
a
is
lot
what
of
you
new
were
young
telling me.
actors, yes.
So let's talk about one of the characters one of the actors I
Yeah.
wasn't really happy with was the character of Hugo.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't that he did a terrible job. For the most part, I enjoyed him. Good-looking kid.
Yeah,
Like I said,
90s
looks like
hardcore.
a young Robert Rodriguez,
Yeah.
coincidentally enough. And I think having to interact with an all CGI character probably was a little too much for him.
Maybe.
Because that whole love interest between him and Alita just felt really forced.
It very much
and,
was.
you know, it was just like that in the manga, too. In the manga, she was innocent and adorable and young and really attached to Hugo. But Hugo had more of a drive in the manga than he did in this world to make it up there, right? So, other than that, you know, I enjoyed everybody else. We have the greatest supporting cast member ever,
Yes.
Christoph Waltz.
Oh,
I
he's
swear, every
fantastic.
movie that he's in, he kills it. Even when
Yes.
he's just the supporting cast. But even in this, he acts like the caring father for Alita, not letting
Which
her
I
become
really
a...
enjoyed because I'm not used to seeing Christoph Waltz in that kind of a role.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really nice to see him do something different than playing like some egomaniac, evil, you know, something a little eccentric. I mean, there's obviously he's a doctor, you know, he's a scientist who repairs cyborgs using spare parts. So
And
he's
he gets
a little
paid in
eccentric.
oranges. Then we have Jennifer Connelly's character, like I mentioned before.
Shireen, yes.
Shireen, she did what she does
She had
best.
to do, yeah.
Looking amazing, as Jennifer Connelly always does. Then you had Vector, played by Oscar.
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
Yes, which I mean, he's the only one I think I had a little bit of problem because, and maybe I don't know when they casted this originally, but he's obviously blown up since then. So I felt like, to me, I guess you said he's done the job he was supposed to do in the comics, but I felt like he was
playing
underutilized.
the role of the puppet.
Yeah, the puppet, right?
Then we had kids, like the kid from Bumblebee and the kid that plays Saya from Deadly Class.
Condor. Yeah, for me, it was very exciting. And Jorge, who was in Bumblebee, was also in Spider-Man Homecoming. So I was very excited about all these characters.
Loved Ito, but the person that stole the show for me
100%.
was the girl that played Alita. And what is her name?
Rosa Salazar.
Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
So I read an article with James Cameron. And he said, okay, so all this time I've been waiting for technology to catch up to Alita. Like,
yes.
That way I can make this movie. But I was wrong.
I'm glad you waited.
I was just waiting for this girl to play Alita. And I was like, oh my God, that is the most beautiful way of putting it, because she was amazing. She was adorable, but she sounded so...
badass.
And the way she sounded was like the way that I voiced her in my head. Like, old and has a lot of wisdom behind her, but also still innocent and young and
very childlike.
Perfect. And the CGI, holy shit! It reminded me of the first time I saw Gollum in the Two Towers.
Yes, and you're just blown away, right?
I stopped believing that I was looking at a CGI character and started believing that it was another
and that's how she
character.
Is too. Yeah,
perfect. And I know people complained about her eyes, but it makes sense in the story, as in like they explain why she looks different than all the other cyborgs, because she's 300 years old.
Well, and she's technology. She's like a Martian technology, right?
Right, so it's different because they show all the other warriors from that timeline in a flashback scene that they all have very similar eyes.
Exactly, very
similar
features.
Wonderful. So CGI, let's talk about the action scene.
Which I think were well done. I enjoyed the action scenes. The motorball, some of the motorball scenes for me were some of the best in the film.
Oh,
so because obviously motorball takes a huge forefront. You kind of see it play in the background a little bit. She wants to be in motorball, but she can't really. So then she becomes a hunter warrior.
There wasn't a moment that I was sitting there thinking, God, this looks so fake or
but
bad.
It didn't. Yeah.
Even with the characters that are like Ed Scaron's character that Zapan, whatever.
Zapan, yeah.
So I mean, he's just a face, and technically, I could just sit there and be like, this looks really bad, but it looks so good and fluid in the way that they moved and the way that she fought. The action sequences were so amazing. Yes. It's like Rodriguez has been working with Skyboy and Shark Girl or Lava Boy, and learn how to work those CG and green screen elements together because it was directed so well.
It really was, because there's a lot of cyborgs in the movie. It's not just her. All the hunter warriors, even Ito's nurse has a cyborg arm.
Yeah, everybody has cybernetic parts.
It's just seeing how well. It's not, they didn't just do a lot on her and then skimp on everyone else. They went full blown with everything.
So as far as the cinematography goes with the action, it was amazing. Like, I was never bored. I thought it was just as good as Aquaman, the way that it looked.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
And what I liked about it too is it's not just the CG, but then even when you get down into the Iron City, when they're like in front of Kansas, the bar, there's obviously they had to have used some real sets.
Well, that's what I was going to talk to you about, like the actual design, like the set designs and things like that, and the world building that this creates, because Iron City, the Iron Scrap City looks like a believable world. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned the 90s, I was like, maybe that's because I was getting the sense of the 90s because it felt like I was actually watching people in a set.
Yes, and I think that's
not that that's a bad thing.
It's
like not a bad thing like a set, like I'm talking like Game of Thrones set, like it's a castle. And yeah, there's CG in the back, but holy shit, it looks like a believable place.
Yes, it's not just all CGI and they're interacting with CGI things.
No, it was great. I love the designs of the city, and it makes me believe in a bigger world. And they are technically doing some world building, because now we're gonna go up to Solemn, maybe, if there is a sequel. So
yes, and that's why I was hoping this would resonate with me as an average moviegoer, because then maybe other average moviegoers would want to go see it, because that's who's gonna, all the hardcore fans will come see this. Mm-hmm. But we want those people who may be on the fence, but it looks like a good action flick, to show up and see it. Like they all went out and saw Aquaman, so they didn't get the sequel.
Part of this review, too, is I have to look at it from a movie perspective. Like, if I'm not familiar with the actual content of Alita as a manga or an anime, then I have to view it like a moviegoer. And the thing that would irk me would probably be the cheesy dialogue, the forced love. And maybe the pacing. But the pacing, to me, for the most part, with the exception of maybe the last arc, felt like an action movie. It felt like I'm having fun the entire time. I don't have time to waste on love and character development. It's just thrown in there.
Like with the whole sequence with her that you know, Hugo's turn, for instance, I felt was forced, where he was working for Vector, and all of a sudden he's like, "No, I'm done, guys, I'm done." And then, to me, that just felt like we needed that turn because we needed the next scene, which was him getting chased by Zapan, and her having to go save him while she's also trying to escape all of the Hunter warriors who are after her because Vector wants her dead. So, to me, I felt like that was forced for the actual movie.
I think the downfall of this movie for an average moviegoer, like I said, I have to step away from the actual source material, is that it feels like they are cramming a lot. But it may feel like that, but I mean, you know, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Yes, you get the sense that, oh, she's an ancient warrior. Oh, there's this guy that's running the stuff from behind the scenes. He's in he's in a floating city. But, I mean, that's really about it. The only thing, like I said, that felt forced was the love interest, and then the final act, which to me felt rushed because they were like, we gotta end this, and we gotta end it setting up a lot of other things.
Yes.
By throwing in, I think, the motorball element, because motorball isn't even in the books until the fourth of the trades.
And that's how it ends, too.
This is a love letter to the manga and anime. I have never seen anything so close, with the exception of maybe the Rurouni Kenshin movies, the first and second movie. You know, other movies have tried before in the past, like Ghost in the Shell, but this is as close to me as, like, I've ever seen in a live-action movie, that these people really cared about the source material. So much so that they made a lot of the frames and the panels from the manga show up in here. So it's like they really didn't need a storyboard. They were like, let's just use the manga for the storyboard. So that part of me absolutely loves it. I want to give this a 10 out of 10. But I think my final score, to be fair, 8.5 out of 10. It's still a great movie. Go and see it. What do you give it?
I actually was going to give it an 8.5 too.
Yes!
Yeah,
we agreed.
I think, beside, you know, the forced romance.
I love that you
some
love
of the
it,
plot,
though.
yes, but in the theater, I kept going. I was like, like it.
She wants to read it, and I'm like, yes,
yeah,
that's what I want to see.
Old reader, new reader.
I want to see people fall in love with the character of Alita, so they can go and get the manga.
Please.
Yeah. So yes,
please go see this movie.
Please go see this movie so we can get a sequel, and I can see at least
exactly
two more sequels, so I can finish it out.
And again, like I said, I'm glad they pushed it back. They did not. This would have gotten lost with Aquaman's, you know, wave. It just would have got. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways. But that's what we thought of the film, and we want to know what you thought of it. So go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit our like and subscribe button, and ring that bell for notifications for more great content from Near Mint Condition. And also follow us on all of our social media channels at Near Mint Con. And remember, guys, if it's classy and cool, it must be Near Mint. Bye, guys.
You ready to do this?
Yeah.
We're back.
We're back.
Well, not that
we were gone very long.
Week, but
we're back to doing reviews.
So, hey,
ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. You can say whatever you want to. I'm like your teller to your pen in the intro because I don't say shit because you won't let me.
No, that's not true.
Anyway,
okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm good.
Okay.
Make sure I'm good.
You're telling me or are you asking me?
I am. Okay.
Okay.
On today's episode of Reels Talk with Amanda and Omar, what happened?
I messed up. You know, it's like 1,000, 1,000, right? I don't know if anybody ever told you about those.
I always thought Mississippi. Okay, but everything I say is really fast. So 1,000, 2,000.
Oh my God. Okay. I'll just be quiet.